Good morning students and friends. Today we will start with chapter number 1 of NCERT biology, that is reproduction in organisms. In this chapter we have to learn the meaning of a reproduction and the processes which occurs in a reproduction. But before we learn the reproduction, we will learn the basic about a lifespan. What is a lifespan? The lifespan, that means it's a period between a birth and a natural death of an organism is called as a lifespan. Every living organism has a certain lifespan. They cannot live for uncertain time period, or they are not immortal as well. See here, we will first discuss the lifespan of some organisms. Like elephant. The usual lifespan of an elephant is 65 to 90 years. The rose plant. The lifespan of a rose plant is on an average 5 to 7 years. Dog. The lifespan of a dog is 20 to 30 years. Similarly, the butterfly can live for 1 to 2 weeks. Banana tree. The banana tree can live for 15 to 20 years. Cow. A cow can live for 18 to 22 years. The lifespan of a crow is 15 years. The lifespan of a parrot is 140 years. The crocodile can live for 60 years. The rice plant can live for 4 to 7 months. The horse can live for 60 years. The fruit fly can live for 2 to 3 weeks. The tortoise can live for 100 to 150 years. A banyan tree can live for 200 to 300 years. A peepal tree can live for 2000 to 3000 years. So if you look after the lifespan of a different living organism, some are such that they are in the terms of weeks, some are in the terms of months, some are in the terms of years. Some has hundreds of years and some has thousands of years. So from now, it indicates that the lifespan of different living organism has different time intervals. How this occurs? It doesn't depend on the size even. Like if you see the crow and the parrot, mostly the crow and the parrot has similar in size. But the crow can live for 15 years, the parrot can live for 140 years. Even if you compare the elephant and any small like a dog, if elephant has 65 to 90 years, or you can also consider the banyan tree. The banyan tree has 200 to 300 years. That means the lifespan may vary from living organism to. Now, as we know that no living organism is immortal, but they maintain their generation to generations. Why this happens? It is due to a process called as reproduction. So what is a reproduction? Reproduction is a biological process in which a living organism that gives rise to an offspring that is similar to itself. That means it is similar to a parent. Here in this definition, we have to focus on that. It is a biological process, that means it is only performed by a living organism. Non-living organism cannot reproduce. Here the offsprings are produced, and these offsprings are similar to itself, means they are similar to a parent. That means an egg of a hen can only generate a hen. It cannot generate crocodile. So thus it generates offsprings which is similar to itself or its parent. What is the need of this reproduction? The purpose of reproduction is it maintains the features from generation to generations. So once the one living organism die, their features will continue into their offsprings and they are maintained from generation to generations. The living organism adopt a different types of reproductions. The type of reproduction, what they adopt, it depends on the certain factors. The first factor, it depends where it lives, means their habitation. Second one, it also depends on its internal physiology and the many other factors. But if you want to broadly decide or divide the types of reproduction, then broadly there are two types of reproduction. First one is asexual reproduction and the second one is sexual reproduction. So what do you mean by asexual reproduction? The asexual reproduction is a type of reproduction in which a single parent is involved that gives a rise to a new offspring. Here, in a sexual reproduction, the two parents are involved of opposite sex and that leads to or that gives a rise to a new offspring. So now have a look about the difference between asexual and the sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, only a single parent is involved, whereas in case of a sexual reproduction, the two parents of opposite sex are involved. The asexual reproduction involves a formation of gamete or the process occurs without formation of gametes. But yes, in sexual reproduction, the formation of gamete is necessary because it involves a fusion of gametes. In asexual reproduction, as only a single parent is involved, so that's why the copies which are produced or the offsprings which are produced, they are exactly same. But in case of a sexual reproduction, it involves a formation of gametes and fusion of gametes. So exact copies are not produced, but yes, similar looking copies are produced. Like we look like our parents, but not the exact copies. Asexual reproduction usually performed by the lower order of organisms, like for example, algae and fungi. Whereas the sexual reproduction, it occurs in higher order of organisms, like for example, flowering plants, some animals, humans, etc. Let's understand the asexual reproduction in detail. First of all, we will start with asexual reproduction in animals. Animals reproduces asexually. Mostly unicellular organisms only reproduces asexually, whereas the multicellular organism mostly reproduces by sexual reproduction. Those animals which reproduces asexually, they reproduces by four types of asexual reproduction. The first type of asexual reproduction is by a method called as fission. The second method of asexual reproduction in animal, it is sporulation. The third type of asexual reproduction in animal, it is budding. And the fourth type of asexual reproduction method is fragmentation. So now start with the fission. What is a fission? The usual meaning of a fission, that means a breakdown. So here the nucleus which is present in the cell, that first break down and then the cytoplasm divides. So how it happens? Suppose assume that this is a unicellular organism. In this unicellular organism, it's a nucleus. In a fission process, the nucleus divides first. That means here it forms like nuclear division. And after nucleus division, two nucleus are formed. These are the two nucleus are formed. And once the two nucleus are formed, the cytoplasm divides, and that leads to a formation of two different living organisms. So this is a kind of a process called as fission. Fission can be of two types: binary fission and multiple fission. In a binary fission, two offsprings are produced, whereas in multiple fission, many offsprings are produced. The binary fission can again of three types. First is called as simple binary fission. Second one is called as transverse binary fission. And third one is called as longitudinal binary fission. So what is a simple binary fission? In a simple binary fission, first the nucleus divides and then cytoplasm divides in any direction. This type of a simple binary fission is observed in an organism called as amoeba. The second type of a binary fission is a transverse binary fission, in which the difference is that the nucleus divides, but the cytoplasm, it divides transversely, and it is observed in case of paramecium and planaria. The third type of a binary fission is a longitudinal binary fission. Now I hope you understand that here the cytoplasm divides longitudinally, and the example are euglena and vorticella. So this is a binary fission, simple, transverse and longitudinal. I again repeat the examples of simple binary fission. The example of simple binary fission is amoeba. The example of transverse binary fission is paramecium and planaria, and the example of longitudinal binary fission is euglena and vorticella. Now regarding the multiple fission. In a simple binary fission or the binary fission, the nucleus divides into two nucleus. But here in multiple fission, the nucleus divides into a many nuclei. Each nuclei gets surrounded by cytoplasm, and then after they divides. Such kind of a fission is observed into a amoeba, paramecium and plasmodium. So you understood what is a fission? Fission means a breakdown where the nucleus divides first and then the cytoplasm divides later on. So this is all about a fission. Let's move ahead with the second type of a asexual reproduction in animal. The second type of asexual reproduction in animal is a sporulation. What is a sporulation? We will discuss it with the example of an amoeba. So now it's a sporulation. Let's have an example of amoeba. This is an amoeba. You know that you might have studied in the 10th standard that the amoeba has a finger-like projection, and that is called as pseudopodia on its surface. Now, what is a sporulation? In a sporulation, when there is an unfavorable conditions to a living organism, in case of amoeba, first of all, this pseudopodia, they gets a drop off, and there is a formation of a layer around them. Usually 3 layers are developed surrounding them, and these layers are called as cyst. The formation of the layer around it, the process of formation of the cyst or the layers around it, the process is called as encystation. When this animal gets a favorable condition, the layers which are formed around it, it gets a rupture, and the nucleus which is present in it, it gets a divide, and the many amoeba gets released. So this kind of asexual reproduction is found in amoeba, and apart from amoeba, it is also observed in case of plasmodium. So these are the two examples of sporulation, amoeba and plasmodium. Now the third type of asexual reproduction in animal, that is budding. This is the third type of asexual reproduction, a budding. What is a budding? Budding, that means, suppose assume that this is an organism. I am currently drawing an organism, that is a hydra. So what is a budding? In a budding, there is a formation of a cell mass. A part of a living organism, they produces a raised cell mass. This raised cell mass is considered as bud. From this bud, the whole new living organism that's going to be produced. Initially, this new living organism which is produced, it remains attached to a parent body, and then later on it detaches from a parent body and produces a new living organism. Thus, two living organisms are produced. This process is called as budding. Okay? If the bud is formed outside of a body of a living organism, then this is called as exogenous budding. And if it is formed inside of a living organism, then it is called as endogenous budding. Exogenous budding is found in Hydra, where the animals who reproduces by endogenous budding, where the bud is formed inside a body. The bud which is formed inside a body can also be called as gametes. And the examples of endogenous budding, or the animals who reproduces by endogenous budding, are Spongina and Cycon. The Spongina is a freshwater sponge, and the Cycon is a marine sponge, and they reproduces by another type of asexual reproduction, and what we call as budding. Now let's move ahead with the next type of asexual reproduction, and that is called as fragmentation. So let's now look at this fragmentation. In a fragmentation, what happens? Let us assume that this is an animal. In this fragmentation method, first the animal divides into many fragments. From these many fragments, each one that produces a new living organism. A new living organism is produced. This one produces the remaining part of a body. This one will produces the another remaining parts of a body, and this one produces the another remaining parts of a body. So each fragment that develop as a new living organism, and such kind of a method is called as a fragmentation. The fragmentation is observed into a hydra and starfish. It is also observed in a planaria. So that's all about the asexual reproduction in animal. So let's just have a look of the examples of different animals that reproduces by different asexual methods. So starting with the first, fission. In a fission, there are two types of a method. First is called as binary fission, and the second one is called as multiple fission. The binary fission, there are again three methods. First is called as simple binary fission. Second one is transverse binary fission. Third one is longitudinal binary fission. In the simple binary fission, the example is amoeba. In a transverse binary fission, the examples are paramecium, and the another example is planaria. In longitudinal binary fission, the examples are euglena, and the another example is Vorticella. In multiple binary fission, the examples are amoeba, paramecium. The examples of sporulation is amoeba and plasmodium. The budding, there are two types of a method: exogenous, endogenous. The exogenous budding, the example is hydra. In endogenous budding, the example is spongilla, which is a freshwater. Another one is cycon, it is a marine. Whereas in fragmentation, the examples are hydra, starfish, and planarian. So if you look after the different examples of a living organism, see amoeba, then amoeba can be reproduced by simple binary fission, as well as it can also reproduce by the multiple fission, as well as it can also reproduce by the sporulation. If you look after the example of a hydra, hydra can be reproduced by fragmentation, as well as it can also reproduce by the exogenous body. If you look after the example of a paramecium, the paramecium can be reproduced by transverse binary fission, it can also reproduce by multiple fission. If you look after the plasmodium can be reproduced by sporulation. So that's all about the examples of asexual reproduction in animals. You have to remember these examples. So today ultimately we have learned about lifespan, reproduction, the purpose of reproduction, types of reproduction, the difference between asexual and the sexual reproduction, and the asexual reproduction in animals. In the next session, we will learn regarding the asexual reproduction in a plant and the sexual reproduction.